Before we begin, post your location and local time in the comments. I'm always curious how far these stories travel. At dawn, the ridge feels like a cathedral only nature could design. The wind plays the pines like organ pipes. A hawk writes slow cursive on the thermals. And Evan sits on the back steps, coffee steaming, listening to the creek tick rocks like a metronome. It's a rhythm as old as his 12 acres. But one morning the music changes, cut off mid-bar by a thin mechanical whine. He glances up, expecting maybe a neighbor's kid playing with a toy. Instead, a sleek quadcopter hovers just outside his workshop window, its glassy lens fixed on him with the kind of unblinking interest you normally reserve for UFO sightings. Historians still argue whether sarcasm or caffeine is the better morning defense. But Evan picks sarcasm. "Well, hello, paparazzi," he mutters. "Paparazzi, he..." It backs away a few feet, then starts prowling along the eaves. He tries approaching slowly, palms open, the universal sign, "For I come in peace." But the thing rises and drifts off toward the valley. By lunch, he's convinced it's a one-off. Maybe a lost gadget. But the next morning it's back. Same profile. Same whispering blades. This time it peers into both his workshop and kitchen windows before zipping off again. The sheriff's office is sympathetic but limited. Airspace is a jurisdictional knot, and the deputy politely warns him that swatting drones could land him in cuffs. So Evan starts logging visits, noting time's approach angles, even the subtle shift in pitch when the rotors strain against wind. Julia, his wife, teases him about making a drone yearbook until she sees close-up shots showing the same red and white logo on multiple units. That logo belongs to a local aerial photography company owned by the cousin of Karen Randolph, the HOA president from the neighboring subdivision. A week later, Evan overhears Karen at an HOA meeting railing against that eyesore on the ridge, her voice full of civic righteousness and thinly veiled contempt. It clicks. The drones aren't random. They're a coordinated watch. Julia, usually the pacifist, tells him flatly, "We document everything." From that moment, Evan shifts from irritated neighbor to meticulous archivist. Every hum in the sky is noted, every clip saved, every path mapped, because this isn't just airspace anymore. This is war above the treetops. The rhythm of surveillance becomes its own kind of weather, sometimes just a faint whine in the distance, sometimes a low hovering presence that rattles the wind chimes. Evan adds a spectrum analyzer under the workshop eaves, listening to the 2.4 and 5.8 GHz bands like a ham radio hobbyist with a grudge. One windy afternoon, a drone swoops low enough to clip the tops off the boxwoods, scattering green confetti across the terrace. The sheriff sends a deputy, but the visit ends with a twist of irony. Karen has called in a complaint claiming he threatened her $15,000 drone. Historians still argue whether audacity or altitude is the drone pilot's best weapon, but in this case, Karen seems to wield both. 2 days later, an official HOA letter arrives, notice of interference with inspection flights, as if Evans Ridge were part of Maple Heights. It's not. Julia reads it twice, tosses it on the table, and says, "They're not even hiding it anymore." Instead of lashing out, they double down on evidence. Evan borrows a tripod, compiles a highlight reel of low passes and window hovers, the rotor whine serving as its own soundtrack. Then comes the morning on the veranda. Coffee, peaches and bourbon recipe talk, a sudden rotor pitch deep enough to make the air feel tight. The drone blows past the tree line, circles them like an aggressive wasp, and then a metallic rattle. It tilts, drops, and strikes Julia square on the shoulder. She gasps, clutching the spot as blood wells from a shallow but sharp gash. Evan's phone is still recording. He photographs everything: the wound, the blood on the decking, the downed drone twitching like a mechanical beetle. When deputies arrive, Karen rolls up behind them, Coral blazer traded for studied casual. She calls it unfortunate and blames a malfunction. Evan insists the drone be tagged as evidence citing injury hazard protocol a firefighter friend once told him. The deputies bag it. 3 days later, at the county's electronics lab, a tech shows Evan the drone's guts, plus 200 gigabytes of footage. Kitchen windows, workshop safes, even bedroom windows at night. GPS logs show 80% of flights launching from Karen's backyard. No autopilot manual control every time. Back home, Julia hears the report, switches off the TV, and says, "We finished this." A friend in the local press gets a curated package of the most damning clips. The resulting story reveals other residents were also targeted, some into joining the HOA under pressure. Then an anonymous email lands HOA meeting minutes signed by Karen explicitly recommending further action to pressure owner. Evan knows then they're not just under surveillance, they're at the heart of a conspiracy. By Monday, Evan has the lab drives, the GPS logs, and the HOA minutes stacked like ammunition beside his coffee mug. The sheriff's pace has been polite but glacial, so he calls the county prosecutor's office and doesn't hang up until he's got a sit-down. Melanie Torres, all calm precision and lawyer's pen-tap cadence, listens through the whole saga without interrupting. Then she ticks off the list: unlawful surveillance, trespass, and the second-degree stalking, criminal harassment, assault with a dangerous instrument. This is a lot more than a neighbor dispute, she says, and for the first time in months, Evan hears authority call it what it is. Investigators start interviewing the other residents, the lab tech, anyone with relevant testimony. Evan also files a civil suit: privacy invasion, emotional distress, medical expenses, punitive damages. His attorney, a neighbor from hell specialist, grins when he sees Karen's own minutes typed like a confession. Historians still argue whether arrogance or ignorance produces better evidence. In this case, Karen may have achieved both. The press runs with it, local, regional, then national. Karen tries to spin her side, but every denial gets countered by fresh clips and neighbor accounts. The HOA board splinters. Their insurer starts looking for an exit. Trial is set, no continuance granted. Courtroom day. Neighbors, reporters, and curiosity seekers fill the gallery. Karen sits stiff in a muted gray suit, no coral in sight, her lawyer murmuring between points. Melanie's opening hits every beat. Flight patterns, injury, invasion, the HOA's own meeting notes. Evan walks the jury through his logbook while GPS plots bloom on a screen like crime scene pinpoints. Julia testifies, steel-eyed, dismantling the windgust defense with a single line: "You don't hover at eye level for 15 minutes in a gust." The verdict comes back in under 2 hours, guilty on all counts. The judge calls it a campaign of intimidation and violation of privacy, and hands down 12 years in state prison. The civil case settles for $950,000. The HOA dissolves under debt, its clubhouse and lots sold off to cover the judgment. Evan and Julia stand on the veranda the day Karen is transferred. Coffee in hand, the ridge finally quiet, no hums, no glassy lenses peering from the trees. A hawk circles above sole master of the air. Within a week, Evan installs a legal RF detector and jamming module, plus a sign at the gate: private airspace. Trespassing drones will be reported and prosecuted. Word gets around fast. In this part of Oregon, stories like theirs spread faster than wildfire and burn just as hot. The air feels wider now, and the mornings sound like they used to Wayne Creek Hawk. It's a rhythm worth defending, and they know exactly how. The mornings on the ridge settle back into their old measured tempo. Coffee steam curls into pale light, and the hawk's shadow slides lazy circles across the pasture. Without the hum of rotors, each sound feels cleaner, easier to let in. Even the barn's groan at sunrise sounds less like a warning and more like a yawn. Julia's shoulder heals the scar, a small pale mark that she calls her ridgeline tattoo. Sometimes in that soft hour before the sun tips fully over the trees, they sit without speaking, letting the world come to them in slow drips, the scent of pine sap, The clink of cooling metal on the railing, the hush of a breeze that doesn't have to fight propellers. Neighbors still stop by, some with thanks, some with their own stories, all of them testing the new quiet, like you test thin ice. Careful at first, then trusting. There's a comfort in knowing the fight is over, but an even deeper comfort in the proof that they could win it. Evan keeps the RF detector on its lights, calm and steady, and he's never had to hear it sound an alarm. Julia plants a new row of boxwoods where the rotors once shaved them bare. In the evenings, the creek carries the same water down to the valley, whispering the same old song. And as the ridge folds itself into night, their home glows softly, curtains open to the trees, no longer afraid of the dark outside. If the hawk happens to bank low over the veranda, its wings cut the air in a way that sounds almost like a promise, one that says this land, this sky, and this peace are theirs to keep.